All right, we are live now. Welcome back to myself. I am now in United States, and for those of you who don't know, Rajiv ji is immigration lawyer. We do this every week, where we try to answer any immigration-related questions and give you updates. And I know there's going to be a bunch of updates coming up. Today we have a major one, which is H1B modernization. I don't even know what that means, but hopefully Rajiv ji will explain. So Rajiv ji, let's start there. Unless you have questions about my India trip, I did eat a lot of food.
Did you gain any weight?
No, I did not. Surprisingly, I did not.
That's very impressive. That means you were moving around quite a lot.
It was very exhausting trip, like 5 cities, and then there a lot of weddings. So, and it was family wedding, so we had to move
Oh,
around.
you poor thing. You had to go to
Yeah, it was
weddings.
I did not sleep properly. So, but it was good. It's good. I'm glad I did it, and now I'm glad to be back.
Acha, welcome back.
Thank you. Chalo, we'll start with H1B modernization, and it is final now. So, what does that mean, and what is it impact?
Okay. So you have to understand the context of what is going on.
Mm,
The context is Trump is coming in. Now, we've talked about this earlier. In
mm,
the USA, there are several levels of laws. The highest law of the land is the Constitution. Anything below the Constitution has to comply with the Constitution. But who interprets the Constitution?
mm,
It's the courts, right? And the courts do it through their judgments. So at the very top, you have the Constitution. Below that, you have the congressional statutes. Below that, you have regulations. And below that, you have policy. But overriding all of this, the lower levels below Constitution are the courts who interpret what a statute says, what a regulation says, and what a policy says. Okay.
mm,
So they are kind of the judges of what the words mean. Now, policy you can change overnight. But to change laws, you have to go to Congress. To change regulations, you have to go through the rule-making process, which can take a few
mm,
weeks, months, even years. What Biden administration did, there is nothing earth-shattering in these. I mean, people keep saying, oh, great change. No, 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 there's no great change. There are some things
mm,
that are good, but we already
mm.
knew they were coming. There were no
Okay.
surprises here that we didn't
Mm,
anticipate. There are some good things, and I'll begin with the good things that should be the takeaways. And then we'll talk about those things that they have basically formulated, which were already there as a matter of
mm,
policy. So, what was policy has been upgraded to regulation. What was
mm,
policy has been upgraded to regulation. Regulation के ऊपर statute रहता. So if Congress wants to change this, they can change it.
mm,
And above regulation lies, or above statute lies the Constitution. And if Congress does something unconstitutional, that can be rejected, but that has to be done by the courts. They interpret,
mm,
right? So right now, what Biden administration did was largely they upjacked or jacked up that which was policy into a regulation. Why?
got it.
Because if Trump wants to change it, he can't do it with a stroke of a pen.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm,
He's got to go through the regulation process or the
mm,
deregulation process, right? That's the only thing that has changed. Now, the major changes which I really like, one, students who used to get cap extension till September 30th
mm.
will get it all the way to April of next year.
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay.
Okay.
Mm,
That means when the second or third round of lottery comes,
right.
you all of a sudden are not sitting there twiddling your thumbs because you don't have work authorization.
Mm, yeah.
That is a good thing. I'm
Mm,
definitely for it.
mm,
Another very good thing is the entrepreneurs.
mm.
So if you own majority stock in your own company, you can now, beginning January 17th, which is when the regulations take effect, you can actually do an H1B for your own company, even if you're the CEO.
Amazing. Mm,
Okay? and you own more than 50% of the stock of the company. But there are a few unanswered questions there. I'll get to that. This is an important part for many young students, and I should probably spend a little bit more time on this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's say I am pursuing a degree in computer engineering.
Mm.
I come up with this great idea of building neural networks into a hardware, like a firmware. Okay, so it's a great idea, and I want to work on it. Previously, if I wanted to start my own company and own 100% stock, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Still have an H1B. I could do an H1B as long as I could establish employer-employee relationship with my own company. We've done that many times, even though I own majority stock. But
Right.
it's
Right. Right.
complicated. Okay. Now they made it clear, even if you own more than 50% stock of the company or the voting rights in the company, majority voting rights, you can still do an H1B as long as you do it in your own field like a normal H1B. So here's what it means. My company, I am going to be the CEO, but 51% of the times I'm going to be a computer engineer.
Mm.
49% of the times I'll be the CEO. Okay. That means I'm still entitled to that H1B because of my education.
Mm.
Because CEO education is difficult to pin down. Do you need an MBA? Do you need a degree in electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, computer engineering? So it becomes more difficult. But if I'm working as a computer engineer, it becomes a lot easier for me to qualify for an H1B. So even if you own majority stock, you can own your own company and be an employee of that company as long as you spend majority of your time, 51% of your time, in doing that which you are entitled to do under the H1B. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's the downside. Your total time of H1B is 18 months plus 18 months, 36 months.
Mm.
What happens after 36 months?
You have to
I'm
apply.
not able to
Mm.
make this company work because I can't do a green card in 36 months. I'm born in India. I've got
Yeah.
15 years backlog.
Mm.
Okay. What do? That's a problematic area. How about if after I build the company, I become minority stockholder?
Mm.
I give or I sell 20% of my stock to my wife. Can that work? Sure, why not? At least the way the regulation is written, it says if you own more than 50% stock. Now I don't own 50%. I own 30%. My wife owns 21%.
Mm.
Now, can I get the rest of my 6 years back? I think I can.
Mm.
Okay. But how about my green card? How do I get my green card? Do a national interest waiver because you're creating jobs. Do a national interest waiver. Now you can extend that 6 years of H1 forever.
Mm.
At least that's my preliminary thought. So I start with 36 months. Then
Mm.
I shed my stock. Okay. I keep all of a sudden from 51%, I become 30%. 21% is owned by my husband or by my wife. Now, can I get my 6 years? Yes. Why not? Okay.
Mm.
At least it looks like that to me. It doesn't seem to say that that's all you get. I looked at
Mm.
the regulations. I want to see them in context. Right now, I've just seen the regulations kind of separate from the context.
Right.
I think that's how it will be. So another thing you could do is you could do entrepreneurial parole. That's a different kind of it. Not great for Indians, but it's still there.
Yeah.
So some of these things need to be considered. Okay. So now,
Sorry, for national interest waiver, does it do they have to have the jobs created or just show that this will create
just show.
jobs?
Because
Acha.
here is how national interest waiver works. National interest waiver says, I don't care what your past is.
Mm.
I don't care what your present is.
Mm.
I want to know what are you going to do for me in the future?
Mm.
Okay. You must do something which is more than just helping your own company and its clients.
Mm.
That's called national importance. Your work should have national level importance. It should either impact the field. For example, I've got a client for whom we just got national interest waiver, who doesn't claim that he's going to create jobs, but he is working in the field of quantum mechanics.
Mm.
And he's a super expert doing his PhD in quantum mechanics. And he wants to continue doing research. So he's impacting the field. That's national interest.
Mm.
Or you can impact the nation in a positive way, create jobs, create advancement in our technology, whatever you can do. So there are two different approaches to national interest waiver. Here you could go with, I intend to create this many jobs. Now, once you start arguing that I want to do this in the future, the question then becomes, what is your background?
Mm.
So, for example, if you have run 3 different companies before this and sold them profitably, that shows that I have the capacity to do this work.
Mm.
And that's called positioning. I am positioned to do this.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. So the past is important or the present is important only to the extent it shows that your future is possible.
Mm. Mm. Okay. So far, cap gap extension till April, which is great news for students. And
Owning your
then
own company.
owning your own company. So what was the 36 months thing?
So instead of getting, see, normal H1 is what? 6 years.
Huh.
That's 72 months, right?
Correct. Huh.
This H1, you says you can get it for 18 months and extend it for another 18 months. But it doesn't say
Okay.
what happens after that. At least I don't remember. I looked
Right.
at the
Right.
regulations a few days back when newspapers were asking for comments and all.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
looked at the regulations because remember, until I see the regulations completely integrated, I don't even start reading them.
Mm.
I kind of sort of know, but that's the way I saw it.
Got it. Okay.
The third thing which I like very much, there was a big problem with cap exempt H1Bs.
Mm.
Many unsettled issues.
Mm.
First unsettled issues was which organization is cap exempt.
Mm.
So there are 4 kinds. You have institutions of higher learning.
Mm.
You have institutions affiliated with institutions of higher learning, non-profits affiliated with institutions of higher learning. You have uh, government research facilities and non-profit research. The most complicated was non-profit research. What if 10% of my work is research? 90% is policy.
Mm.
Okay. Government said in the new regulations that it has to be a fundamental activity. It doesn't have to be the principal activity. Slight
Mm.
change. Okay. Here is the most important part. There was some confusion. So it's a research organization. If I get a cap exempt position, does it have to be research position?
Mm.
What if I'm the database administrator? Okay.
Mm.
I'm not doing any research. But because I'm supporting their functions, I would be quota exempt, cap exempt.
Oh, nice. Okay.
They made that clear. Although we were getting them before also. So that was
Right.
policy, but it's been made into regulation.
Interesting. Okay.
There was some regulation, there was some regulatory language that even there was kind of like this, but this is quite clear now
Mm.
that you just have to support the organization's function.
Mm. So I mean, database administration was just your example, but it can
Yeah.
be software engineer, web
Network engineer.
design.
Network engineer.
अच्छा
Okay.
हाँ ठीक है. Mm.
Major problem, one of the biggest issues. Let's say I have my guy, I'm a staffing company or a consulting company. And this is actually a real life example. I've got 28 people working at National Institutes of Health.
Mm.
NIH is a quote cap exempt. Let's say I'm a non-profit staffing company. Okay. Actually, let me change that example. I'm just a normal company.
Mm.
Normal staffing company. But the position where somebody is going to work is quota exempt. If this guy, my guy, was an employee of National Institutes of Health, they'll be cap exempt. Okay.
Mm.
So if I have 20 people supporting Microsoft technologies, networks, etc., at NIH, but one of them is working from his home.
Mm.
That guy was not quota exempt. Why? Because he's working remotely.
Mm.
The language said you must be working at the institution.
Okay.
And that was treated literally. I lost a case on that actually. We argued it vehemently that this is a stupid interpretation.
Mm.
At simply means that your services should be available at that location. You don't actually physically have to be there. That is a ludicrous interpretation of the law.
Mm.
So in the new regulations, the government says, no, you can be remote.
Acha. Okay.
So
Nice.
very big advantage.
Yeah.
So these were the three main things. Let me see if there is something else I remember. So there's H1B. First there is lottery. Then there were all kind of interpretations on what is a specialty occupation. But all of that is merely an elucidation or an expansion of that which are already there. I should say codification.
Mm.
So whatever we always used to do in practice, they put it in theory also. Okay.
Mm.
Um, we can get into all sorts of different nooks and corners and talk about how they are defining specialty occupation now. It's basically just a codification of that which we were already doing.
Mm.
For example, the policy of deference. And this applies to everyone who uses Form I-129, like L visa, E visa, not just H1. They say if we have approved your case, normally we'll approve it again
Mm.
as long as there is no material change in the circumstances, there was no error the first time we approved it, and there is no other information that we obtained. Okay.
Mm.
So that was always there.
Yeah.
It pretty much means nothing because the government can decide whatever it wants. What I don't like about this regulation is when you do an amendment or an extension, first of all, you have to prove that you're maintaining status now, which
Mm.
means pay stubs and all, right? Which is okay. But here's the bad part. If your amendment or extension is denied, you can't appeal it.
Mm.
That makes no sense to me. You should be able to appeal it. Okay. So that provision leaves much in doubt, and I'm not sure that is really sustainable legally. It is definitely open to challenge in court.
Mm.
And I'll come to that why challenging government's regulations and judgments has become a lot easier now. And I'll explain that.
Mm.
So the way I'm thinking about it is if they deny my extension, okay, I can't appeal it. I'll just file it as a new case. I'll tell my guy, just go outside for a couple of months. You can work from there. Let me file a new H1B rather than an extension.
Mm.
I'll file it as a new H1B, which means I'm not subject to the lottery, but I'm not doing an extension. I'm just saying, give me 3 years of new H1B. I'm entitled to it. Now, if you deny it, I can appeal it.
Oh, interesting. Mm.
That's the way I read it.
Mm.
So it's some silliness in the regulation that doesn't make any sense. Now, here is something you need to understand. Previously, courts were very differential. They gave respect to an agency interpreting its own regulations, statute, or procedures.
Mm.
So if USCIS says change of status is not allowed because they are experts in change of status, courts will say, okay, we won't go behind this unless it is clearly wrong. That was called Chevron deference. So there were several standards of deference.
Mm.
Respect. Supreme Court this year said, no, 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 no. Agency is not given by God. They don't
Mm.
have some superpowers. They are ordinary human beings with a little bit more training. Okay. If there is simple language, straightforward language, we are not going to give any deference to the agency.
Mm.
And that is pretty much 80-90% of USCIS. Most of the things they have interpreted in a certain way, which courts say, no, nothing doing. You're not going to get any respect in that.
Mm.
Because we can read English as well as you can.
Mm.
Don't tell us apples means oranges and cows means horses.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm.
So that is why it has become, in some ways, a lot easier to challenge agencies' interpretation, which are contrary to common sense.
Mm. Nice. Okay.
Okay. So, in a nutshell, this is where we are. Things will be easier in some ways, much harder in some ways. Now, they say we are going to do site visits. They're already doing it.
Mm.
So, what is new about that?
Mm.
Okay. They say you have to prove that the job exists. They were always saying that you have to prove there is a job.
How do you
And
prove
the
that?
government can
Like
ask,
just like documentation.
yeah, the government can ask for contracts, etc. They were already doing it.
Mm.
The itinerary requirement is not there. You don't have to give the whole itinerary. That was already taken away by courts.
Mm.
Nothing new there. But what they have done is they have solidly nailed down the regulations in a way that was already the practice, so that new administration can't come and change it with a stroke of a pen.
Mm. And if Trump wants to change this, it
He'll have
has to
plenty
go
of
through.
notice.
There will be comment period and all of that.
Yeah, at least. Well, they can abbreviate the notice and comment period. Sometimes they can do it with much, much more abbreviation, but normally they will not go below 30 days, at least a 30-day period of notice and comment. Okay. So the amount of noise that people were making, oh, these are
like life changing.
Yeah, life changing and completely program changing. I kept looking at it, I don't see that. And then I realized, oh, this is just clickbait. People will put this heading, oh, the whole face of H1B is changing. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's the same old bride in new clothes.
Okay. No, but I think the first three things that you mentioned is a nice things.
Those are definitely very useful.
Yeah.
Okay. But they were already in the regulations. There's nothing, they were already in the finalized
policy.
Yeah. Okay. So these regulations come into play on January 17. Now remember one thing. Congress has the power after 60 days when a regulation is the final form is received by Congress or when it is published in the Federal Register, whichever is later. In this case, later is, this was published, December
17th
or 18th? Okay. So they have 60 days. Congress can actually set aside the regulation, even before Trump comes in. But that's going to be very difficult, I think, because if current situation is a guide to what is going to happen. So look at the way the government funding was going on. Up until yesterday, we didn't know if we are going to get funding, or was it? Yeah, yesterday. Trump wanted government to be closed down.
Yeah.
Okay. And the House Republicans, 39 or 38 of them said, no, we're not going to go with you on that. Well, closing down the government is a very big deal. That is such a suicidal thing to do. But these billionaire boys don't care. Ordinary people get hurt. They can't get paid. They don't get,
And when they say close down, like literally lay off, like everyone.
Down, not lay off. Oh. You can't come to work. Don't get paid. Things don't get done. Department of Labor closes down.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So things like that. Only agencies that are self-funded can continue to work. But the agencies that need funding, so for example, USCIS is mostly self-funded. They are getting their money through the fees.
Fees, yeah.
Okay. So what we have seen is that the political environment for Trump is not as secure as he thought he is. So the difference between Trump last time and Trump this time is big. They have both houses. They have majority in both houses.
Supreme Court as chambers.
Well. They have the Supreme Court, the one who decides what a law says or what Constitution says. But I think there is a limit to what he can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like
somebody was asking me, what is the difference in policy? And I said, well, I can put it to you this way. You have mamus and you have chachus. Chachus are the ones who are tough. They say, no, we want to change everything about no immigration, stay outside. Stephen Miller is a chachu. And then you have mamus who say, some immigration is okay. We need the H1Bs. And that's Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. In the previous administration, there were no mamus. There were only chachus. This administration, you'll have mamu and chachu. And let's see, your mamus, your chachus.
Yeah.
So that will decide a lot of the policy. Because Trump doesn't know first thing about the law.
Yeah. So
and most presidents don't, to be honest. I mean, most presidents be briefed about these things. And Trump doesn't even like to read things. So how is he going to learn? Nevertheless, what will happen this time, we don't know. Who wins, who prevails, whose policy will prevail, we don't know.
Hmm. So there is like this big concern from universities. They are sending these notices to the students that, hey, if you're visiting your family, please make sure to come back before January 20th. And bunch of students were nervous and they sent me DMs and I was like, what does Rajiv ji have to say about this? And I was like,
I
okay,
think
we'll
it's
ask.
overblown. I think it's overblown because if you think about the history, if I'm trying to remember what happened exactly. Trump did 3 Muslim bans.
Hmm.
First one got struck down by courts.
Hmm.
Second one, I think, also got struck down by courts. The third one that survived was the one that had certain reasonable exemptions. They said, okay, you can ban people, but you can't ban people who already have visas.
Hmm.
And if you are going to ban people who apply for visas, there is provision for national interest exemptions.
Hmm.
Okay. So as long as there are reasonable guardrails, president can do certain things, but the president can't do everything that he wants to.
Hmm.
What logical reason there would be to keep students from India out of
Yeah.
USA?
Yeah.
Okay. I can understand if there are certain countries that were designated, like Libya was, that there are terrorists coming from this country. I can understand if you want to put in some reasonable restraints on that. But it's got to be
Hmm.
reasonable. It can't be unreasonable. What is likely to happen? In the worst case scenario, if Trump says, okay, we are going to do more careful screening at the airports, my advice to people would be don't change your dates if you already have made the dates for, you paid the money.
Hmm.
I wouldn't, at least, and I don't think I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. That's the way I would do it. I would simply be prepared to answer greater questions about maintaining status. So if
Hmm.
I'm on OPT, I'll make sure I have my paychecks. And if I'm doing unpaid internship, I would have a letter from my employer stating exactly what I do, how many hours I work, and what kind of work I do. Um, I'd just be better prepared to prove that I'm maintaining status.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I'll be,
and students though, like agar unka do, like if they have 2 semesters left or a semester left, I mean they just have to say I'm here to get complete my masters.
yeah. So if you are just studying, make sure that you carry your transcripts from the previous semesters to show that you
Mm,
were attending school.
mm, mm. Yeah.
So essentially, as long as you can demonstrate that you're maintaining status, I don't see why you should not be allowed to come in.
Mm, yeah. What about the case? This was also very common that people who are on OPT, they are non-paid OPT. This is their first year, and they are not. It's not paid OPT. They are working as a volunteer or whatever, and they want to travel for whatever family functions. And
Mhm.
should they do that or not? This was also very
Why
common
not?
question.
Why not? See, they have to prove 3 things.
Mm,
Students in this situation. Number one, they are working at least 20 hours each week.
mm,
Number two, they are working in their own field,
mm,
right? And number three, let me think about this. I had 3 things in my mind: OPT, I travel, I come back, maintaining status. Uh, there should be one more thing. I actually thought about this beforehand. Give me one moment to think about this. Student coming back. I have my visa. I have my I-20. My I-20 is endorsed for travel. I'm proving that I am working 20 hours. I'm working in my own field. Oh, yeah. And how am I supporting myself if I'm not getting paid?
mm,
That's the third thing I had thought of. How do I prove how am I supporting myself?
mm.
Bank statements.
Acha. Okay.
Okay. And remember one very important thing. When you come, they can ask you to open your telephone or your
Mm,
computer.
mm.
Okay. You can say no, but then they can say no, don't come in, go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can say no, but then they can say no too.
Mm,
So be prepared to open your telephone for them and open any devices, electronic devices, iPad, etc. They can ask for it.
yeah.
That's within their rights.
And so this is what you were saying. It few students told me this, that because they were working illegally off campus with restaurant owners or gas stations, and they saw the chat on WhatsApp, and they were not allowed to come back, and they
That's
were
that
just
that could be a very big problem, because if they ask you before they open the phone, have you worked without authorization? They place you under oath, for example. Say, okay, I'm putting you under oath. I want your formal statement on the record. Are you working? And you say no. Now that could be a permanent bar from entering the US.
mm,
5 years minimum, they can give you right there. They can say you're denied admission, don't come back for 5 years.
mm,
But they can also permanently bar you. So I would
mm,
rather tell the truth and get into trouble than tell a lie and get into trouble.
mm. Okay.
Because if I tell the truth, maximum they can give me is 5 years.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Few other questions on traveling. One is on campus job. So this student is studying on campus. They are on F1 visa, visiting family for winter break, but they have their work continue on campus. And their manager is okay to do remote while they are in India. Is that okay?
So there's a difference between OPT and on campus.
Mm,
Okay. As far as I know, I'll have to double check it. I haven't looked into it. But as far as I know, on campus employment remotely should not be a problem as long as the manager is okay.
mm,
But OPT, STEM OPT remotely outside US, inside USA, it's acceptable. Outside USA, is it acceptable or not? That's up in the air.
mm.
There's no definitive ruling on that as far as I know. I know that DSOs have said it's okay. And I know also DSOs who've said, we don't really know.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think that
yeah.
is the better opinion.
Right. And this student did tell me that their DSO said it's okay, and then manager is okay with this person
Yeah, but
working.
I think it's on-campus employment is different than OPTs.
What about CPTs? This is
CPTs
now
are trickier. See, CPTs are legal. There's nothing illegal about a CPT.
नहीं मैं CPT day one की बात नहीं कर like I'm talking about internships.
Any kind of CPT is
Hmm,
legal. Even day one CPT is legal because the law says
hmm.
it's allowed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
like normal like this is regular co-op that
I think
student is
that's
doing.
fine. I,
That's fine.
I
Hmm,
wouldn't, that doesn't bother me at all.
hmm,
See, here is the problem. If somebody
hmm.
has been in the US for 17 years doing third CPT, that does kind of create a problem, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah.
Okay. But we don't know how the government is going to react to that right now. Can they just tell you, we're not convinced that you're a genuine student and turn you back? Maybe they can.
Hmm,
Because CBP
hmm.
has more power at the airport than they do once you're inside the country.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I just came with my parents, and so my brother is also traveling with me, and they asked him, "What do you do?" And he's like, I work. I mean, he didn't say he's like he said work, but he didn't say he's business owner. So he's like, "Okay, you're gonna be here for 4 months. How are you gonna work?" And then he said, like, "Oh, I'm actually a business owner. I have drivers. He does tours and travels business, and so he has drivers and everything can be done remotely." And so it was very interesting line of questioning, because then that into like multiple other questions, and it was just very fascinating to me.
Which airport did you land?
San Francisco, it's California. That was
Very
like,
busy airport. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I can
I
understand
was
if it's a
surprised.
little airport where they're like, oh, thank God somebody showed up. We can actually talk to this guy. On
No.
busy airports, that's unusual. But yeah, of course, they can definitely ask all those questions. Plus, if somebody is traveling with you,
With you, me, yeah, I know. But Caitlin was with me, so I was hoping that her niceness will like let
uh,
us go.
I think you have tainted everyone.
Right. Okay. Anything else before we move on to Q&A?
Trying to think. I think we covered most of the important points. And if there's something that is left,
Yeah, we'll
I'll be
cover.
writing
Yeah.
for my blog as well as for Economic Times if there's something else I see.
Okay.
So you'll
Cool.
see my articles. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Uh, but if you connect with me on LinkedIn, make sure that your identity is verified.
Mhm.
Or there's some way I can verify your identity, because I don't connect with people I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
All
I'll
right.
keep you in.
You you will start with, do you think H1B is better than O1 for solo startup founders now that this change is made?
Well, it's a difficult call. So that brings up another issue. So the way I would approach it is Daveji. I would maybe start with H1B because you still have to go through the lottery, right? I don't think they're quota exempt from what I
Mm,
remember of the regulation. They're normal H1Bs. So if you win the lottery, then you do an H1B, and after 30 months, 6 months, by that time, if you've created jobs and you're otherwise qualified for an O1A, O1 is a great option because it's
mm,
forever. You can keep extending it, right? So I think H1B is still a better option.
mm. Okay. Another O1 question. If I have O1 visa and my EB1A I-140 is approved, does my O1 visa renewal automatically like
No,
H1B? No,
even
yeah.
H1B doesn't renew automatically. We have to apply
Mm,
for it.
right. Yeah.
You will have to forever apply for O1 extensions.
Yeah. And O1s are for like 3 years?
Let me try to remember. I think it's 2 years. Too
Two
many
years.
years.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you keep renewing it every 2 years, if I remember correctly. O1A at least is like that.
Mm, okay.
I could be wrong. I don't
Yeah.
remember off the top of my head. I think it's 2 years because see, there are so many visas. E2s are they? E2s are 3 years. E1s are 3 years. TNs are 3 years. O1s, H1s are 3 years. L1s are sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes 3 years. So it's so
Mm,
difficult to keep all these in track.
yeah. 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 And what about so sorry, there's one more question that I remember this person asked me was uh, they are on OPT right now. They were not picked in the first attempt of H1B lottery,
Mhm.
but their company is willing to do green card right now. So should they do it, will this impact like or anything?
I think this person contacted me on LinkedIn also.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I referred them to my Economic Times page. I said just Google Rajiv as Khanna, Economic Times. I wrote an article about this, uh, processing green card while you're still on F1. So theoretically possible unless you are born in India, because then you have so much wait time. It's not going to help you tremendously because you need work authorization now. So theoretically, at least, H1Bs, green cards even on F1 status are good, theoretically at least, but they can cause other problems. So read my article. Go to
But what about like so they can do the green card, but next year they should still continue to do the
They'll
H1B,
have to
right?
continue, yeah, and that doesn't
Because
interfere with their application.
because if they don't, then they're gonna run out of time, is my guess.
See, H1B is work authorization right now.
Mm,
Green card is work authorization and ability to stay in the future.
mm,
So
mm,
ultimately, until you get to that future where your green card is approved, you need an H1B.
mm, mm. Okay. Could being in a social group that post warehouse, gas station jobs and freebies affect someone's US entry if they've never worked such jobs and only joined for ads about paying guest rooms or freebies?
So the problem with that, Zahan, is that you will have to prove that you have not worked. Proving the absence of something is very difficult.
Mm,
Think about it. If I say, um, UD and I have a contract, he's going to pay me $10,000 every time I open my mouth. It's easy to prove I have a contract. But I tell UD, prove that we don't have a contract. How will you
mm.
prove that? Think about it. How would you prove that you don't have a contract? Proving the absence of an affirmative fact is very difficult. So to prove that you have never worked illegally is very difficult.
Wow, that is never thought about it that way, but yes.
It's just common sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. About strict screening, what about new admits, say for fall 2025? Would this stricter screening after Jan 21 impact the F1 visa?
So what can they screen? When you are coming first time, what are they looking for? Do you have an I-20? Yes, you do. They can ask you about your support and all, but that's already been verified by your DSO. So you should have that information. Second thing they're looking for is, does your visa have the same university name as your I-20? End of story. Okay.
Mm.
Can they go more into, well, is your family here, etc., etc.? But all that has already been vetted. That becoming a problem is unlikely. Once you come to the F1 visa has been, or I-20 has been issued, F1 visa has been obtained, can you still be turned back? I mean, I think it's difficult.
Mm. Okay. Is it or will it be hard to get F1 visa for average students?
When you say average students, I don't know what that means.
Mm.
But let's say that you have not gotten into an Ivy League school and you're just going to a regular on ordinary school, but it's still a good school.
Like tier 2 city, tier
Yeah, tier
3.
two school. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it should be okay. I don't think it should be any harder than before. But ultimately, because visa policies, not visa regulations, visa policies are a matter of interpretation of the government that is in power, they can make it more difficult if they want to. Trump and education has a very uneasy relationship. Trump's grades were protected like they were state secrets. When journalists tried to get his grades, they were not able to. Why is he protecting them? If I have A grades or even B pluses, I would be happy to share them. So Trump has a very uneasy relationship with education, even though he claims that he's very smart and all that. So he may not be very charitable towards universities,
Mm.
right? Personally. But if it is making him money, he will do anything.
Mm.
That is my expectation. Okay. So will you be able to find any mamus in the education sector in the Trump administration? Hard to say. But there are people who respect education because there are some well educated people that are advising the president.
Mm.
So ultimately, this is all about how much we want to support our universities, because foreign students do support the universities a great deal. And then they take one step further and go and support many of the industries as well. But that's where point of view comes in. There's another point of view. The chachus will say, wait a minute, we need to train our local workforce. But it takes years to train a workforce. How do
Yeah.
businesses go on? And the
Yeah.
workforce has to be willing to take the time to learn, because you have to quit your jobs or you have to have part-time jobs, which is not possible for everyone.
Mm.
So this is a tough issue. And I think how they will decide will tell us a lot about the character of this new administration. Because if
Mm.
they are truly for the United States, the analysis should begin with always with the first question: what is good for the US?
Yeah. 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 Yep.
So I
Yep.
don't know the answer to that question. We still have to see what their performance is.
Right. My employer has filed H1B through consular process and I'm in US. Can I transfer H1B to another employer before stamping?
It's in our frequently asked question on immigration.com. I think there is grounds for denial, at least theoretically, because you never triggered the H1B, never started working for the employer. But as a practical matter, the government may not think too much about it. They might just give it to you. So
Mm.
I don't know the answer. What the government is going to do, only the government knows.
Mm. Why is that there are a lot of 221G issued by consulates in India for H1B interviews and there has been no identified timeline for processing these 221G?
So there is no doubt, in my mind at least, that there are companies that are trying to misuse the H1B system. No doubt about
Mm.
it. But by and large, in my view, most of the H1Bs are approved based upon reasonable and sound grounds. These are not fraudulent in any way or improper. So the 221Gs require, if there is any shade of doubt, they want to investigate. Now you can imagine if you have 10 officers or 20 officers investigating in Kentucky, that's a lot of pressure for them to try to investigate 200 companies or
Mm.
2,000 companies for that matter. So why is it delayed? Because if there is officer level investigation needed, then it can take time.
Mm.
Um, and consulates cannot let people who are of doubtful eligibility pass through the gates. because that's their function. Their function is to screen people. So is this within their rights? Sure. Um, can we impose time limitations? Obviously not, because they don't have unlimited resources. Are they also misusing it? Yeah, because there's a lot of foot dragging. There are some clearly approvable cases that they are just sitting on. Happens. So systems can be misused both by the government and by private parties.
Yeah. I have Germany work visa and I have B2 visitor visa, but never visited both the places till now. Does this affect my H1B stamping?
I don't see why it should have impact. No.
Okay. Mistake in my DS160. We are 3 people, including dependents. Will there be any issue if new taken to interview, new DS1 taken to 160 taken to interview?
You should correct any errors. And there is a frequently asked questions section issued by the State Department on correcting your DS filings. I would also recommend that if you can get a fax over to the consulate or an email over to the consulate if available, to the non-immigrant visa section saying, I have just discovered an error and there is an error that I would like to correct. I will also bring it for my interview. So what that does is it shows that you're trying to proactively correct an error you have made.
Yeah. Can you talk about the degree relevancy in the new rules? I'm a transportation engineer, civil, but I have a mechanical degree and EIT. Would this be a problem in future?
So this is one thing which has become a little better under this new regulation. So they say that you can't say only one degree is required for this job, because increasingly jobs are becoming multiple field related. For example, I'll give you an example. Let's say you are doing control systems. Okay. So for control systems, you could have a degree in mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, electronics engineering, software engineering, some kind of semiconductor design kind of VLSI kind of education, because it depends upon what level you are working at. Okay. So as long as you can show the relationship between, there is a direct relationship between your degree and the job, it will be easier to get an H1B. It was a little harder. We still won cases, but we had to work hard. Hopefully, the amount of work we'll have to do will be 30-40% less. Yes, it should become a little easier if you can demonstrate that, look, mechanical engineering degree is needed for this job. You can do it with mechanical, you can do it with electrical. Mechanical, by the way, is one of the most widely used engineering disciplines. It is the most widely applied in different disciplines. So I think it will be easier.
Nice. Can we transfer consular processing H1B to another employer? I think we already covered this. Okay. If my EB1A I-140 is approved, how many months do you think it'll take to become current date for India?
You can read the visa bulletin as well as I can. I don't have any inside information.
Yep. What are your thoughts on traveling to India post January 20 to get H1B stamping, visa stamping done?
My thought would be, you have a choice to make, a difficult choice. Either travel as close to January 20th as possible so that the government hasn't had time to do anything drastically different, or wait a good 6-8 months and see what happens before you travel.
Yeah. Okay. H1B cap exam was approved in February 2023. I plan to visit India in 2025 for the first time stamping. What should I keep in mind? Also, my H1B expires in February 2026. Which should I discuss an extension? When should I discuss an extension?
So let's talk about the easy issue first. The earliest you can apply for and obtain an extension is 6 months before February 2026. So apply for an extension as early as possible. What should you keep in mind? Now, that is a book and a half by itself. That's a topic you should be discussing with your lawyers. Is there anything obviously questionable about your background or about the job that you're doing? So make sure that you talk to your lawyers in detail about what your chances and what the weak points in your case are, if there are any. Okay. Very difficult for me to give a generic answer to that question.
Hmm. Currently in India, my H1B approved with X company in US. I have visa stamping on February 25. I want to join Y company after reaching USA. Is that possible?
After a few months, don't do it right away. I mean, again, I'm not so sure which way I would approach it. But here is one problem. One thing I would never recommend is that, let's say you have an H1B approved through IBM and you enter into IBM. And before you even join IBM, you try to convert to transfer to Oracle. That creates a very odd sort of a notion that you just traveled under a pretext. So
Hmm.
I'm not comfortable with that situation. Um, I think after a couple of paychecks, if you wanted to transfer, that's your lookout. Nobody can stop you.
Hmm. Okay. Will you be able to file concurrent H1B for your own company while working with your cap exempt employer on H1B?
I think so. Yes.
Nice. Is it good to graduate in December 2024 or graduate in May 2025 for F1 student, or scenarios would be same in both cases?
Well, what could change are the policies, and unless the government wants to also change the regulations. So I don't have a good answer for that. December to May is just December 2024, which is now. Um, Graduate in May 2025.
I mean, if you have a job like right now,
Yeah,
then just
yeah, because then
graduate.
you'll be covered under the old regulations, the trusted and the known regulations rather
Yeah,
than the new regulations. So
yeah,
how delaying another 5 months, I don't think it helps you much.
yeah. Unless you don't have a job and you're
Yeah,
looking
in
for it,
that
then
case, yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. Okay. Based on your previous conversation on working remote from India during OPT, I have planned to work for 2 weeks during my vacation. My manager is okay with that. Is that acceptable, or I should not work?
No, you can work, Premji. Um, Actually, the way the regulations or is it the policy reads, if you are given annual vacation, 2 weeks, let's say, which is common across your company, then that vacation is not considered to be out of work. Even if you did
Mm,
not work, it will be okay because it's your routine vacation like everybody else in the company.
yeah. Is the lottery fee increase going to help deter frivolous application, ultimately increasing chance for properly filed application?
Just a couple $100. It's not a huge amount. So if you think of a deterrent, $200 being a deterrent, I doubt it.
Yeah, for especially for these companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. This is an interesting one. What if the business fails after initial 18 months? What will be the parameter to determine if you get an extension of the second 18 months?
So if I were to make a guess on this, the guess would be, is the business paying your salary? Because the requirement that the business pay your salary doesn't go away.
Mm, mm, yeah. Okay. I have an approved H1B and planning to go to India for stamping during March, April 2025. Many are saying wait 6 months, July, August 2025 after President elect takes office. What's your advice?
Same answer. Either go very quickly or go after a few months after he takes office.
Yeah. But March 20, April is already like he's already in the office, so he can't go like January ish. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can I come to USA on B2 visitor visa and can I try for H1B status change? Does is it a good idea?
No. In cases like this, I always recommend that you should still apply for H1B outside the US. Because the problem is, if you enter the US with the preconceived intention to change to H1B, government can create a problem saying you committed fraud.
Hmm.
Okay. So I would avoid it if I were you.
Hmm. How long does the national interest waiver based green card take for non-Indian citizen?
So that's a difficult question to answer when you say green, how long does green card take? If you're saying the end of the green card process, that could be 10, 15 years, just like everybody else in EB2 classification. If you say how quickly can the case get decided, approved or denied, you can file it premium. So they have 30 days to respond.
Hmm.
But then again, they can send an RFE. You respond to the RFE again, they have 30 days. So it depends. Too many variables.
Right. We'll do last two questions and then let you go. Do you foresee any issues with H1B stamping for the first time in first week of March 2025? Have all required documents, no visa rejection before?
So if you are working in-house, I think it will be easy enough. But if you are part of a staffing company, it could be questionable.
Hmm. Okay. I'm a spring 2025 student attending a university in Houston, but arriving in Dallas, where my uncle will take me to my university. I didn't mention him in my DS 160. Will this affect immigration?
No, I don't think it should be a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if there's anything. Um, we always have, can we day trade on H1B?
Yeah. We've answered that question several times. Grow to frequently asked questions on immigration.com. That hasn't changed. I think day trading may be still questionable.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think then we will call it. Thank you, Rajiv ji. We'll see you next week. And
Sounds good.
yeah,
Take care,
you're
sir. Bye
welcome.
bye.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Wait, you hold on.
Oh.